The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Wrestling to the Max, Monday Night Raw, review.
Hello and welcome back to the Monday Night Raw review, the Wrestling to the Max Monday Night Raw review. I'm your host, Brandon Biskobing. It's been a long time. I'm rusty. You can excuse that little mishap. Joining me for the first time, I think this is the first time you have ever done a podcast with us, correct?
Yes, sir, it
is Cedric Cologne. Cedric, how's it going?
Scoring great. How's it going?
Pretty good. Are you by any chance a part of the Cologne wrestling family?
I wish.
Don't we all wish we were a part of a wrestling family?
That is true.
So this show gets started off. First off, before we even get started, because the show's been on hiatus for so long, and things have really started to pick up steam over the last couple of weeks. What have you thought of these last couple of weeks and how WWE seems to be getting their what together a little bit?
Well, if you let yourself be led by the online community, it seems that many folks think with the new company coming up, which I will not name because I'm pretty sure everybody knows what I'm talking about. AEW.
Yes. Yes.
Sorry. Anyway, I think that WWE has really taken a stand. Like, hey, this might be real competition, so we might need to start thinking about not just the tomorrow, but the actual now. And they're actually kind of listening to the fans. They're definitely spicing things up pretty well on both brands, and even on the ones on the WWE app, like the NXT. So I think that's lit a fire up their rear ends, and I'm excited to see what else comes up.
See, while I do agree with you to an extent, I'm hoping that this isn't, because I've said this for the last couple of years, at least the last 3 years, of where it seems like because they're getting a lot more of the casual fans, a lot more of the old school fans coming back during WrestleMania season, it always seems like things start to heat up, things start to get better on a creative level during WrestleMania season. And I'm hoping that you are correct. I'm hoping that this is a case of them seeing that AEW is on the rise, that they're getting more competition, and they need to get their act together. But at the same time, I'm also kind of worried that it's the situation of it's WrestleMania season, things are heating up, they're doing more creative things to get more eyeballs going into Mania, but then once Mania is done, it's just going to go back to the same old, same old.
Yeah, that unfortunately that is a possibility. I remember when I think sometime last year during this time scenario, they were going up, and I think I fell for the trap, and then they kind of died down a little bit. So it's happened in the past. So you're correct. Let's hope that that's not the case. Let's hope that some competition truly pushes them to do better.
Agreed. The biggest situation, and it kind of actually segues into, if you want to talk about what happened last week a little bit, what happened with Batista and everything, and him attacking Ric Flair in the back. The one moment that really sticks out to me of, oh wow, they're starting to go a little more edgy and they're starting to bring back more Attitude Era-esque stuff from a couple of years ago that, is really the big point that I'm trying to make, that, you know, they ramp it up during WrestleMania season and then it goes back to the same old afterwards, is when AJ attacked Shane McMahon in the back and threw him through the limo.
Yeah, definitely. But I think they've been kind of hinting on this for a while, even especially with the ladies.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Ronda and Becky and Charlotte, those beatdowns have been marvelous. Like we haven't seen beatdowns like that in the guys from the guy wrestlers in a while.
No,
And
that
so
is for sure.
and some
And
of the and even the New Day with some of their double meaning comments that they make, they've kind of started pushing the envelope pretty good as well.
I mean, they've been great for years at doing that, and even kind of self-censoring themselves.
Hmm.
My fondest memory of them in regards to that is, I forget what exact year it was, but Big E was like, yippee ki yay, mother, and then like Kofi was like, no, you can't say that. But everyone who knows the line knew what he was about to say next.
Hmm.
So, okay, after getting through all that, let's get to the show at hand. The show starts off with Roman coming out to the ring, which I hate to be this guy, because, you know, yes, I know he went through everything and whatnot, and yes, I know, like, you know, it's only the second week, but
Get it out.
I don't want them to make the same. You have the chance to have a pure, clean slate with Roman Reigns, where even his most ardent detractors are on his side right now. But if you immediately push him to the moon again,
Hmm.
those fans are going to go away like that.
I agree. I agree. Today when I was watching the show, when he started giving his monologue and he asked Seth Rollins to come out, and he obviously was kind of hinting. At first, he was kind of. I thought he was gonna ask for the Universal
I
title, and
was
I was like, "Oh no, please
that
don't."
that was exactly what I was thinking too. Was that he was gonna ask, like, "Can I take your spot?" And Seth was gonna say yes. And then I was
And
like, and I was thinking, oh God, they're gonna do it. They're gonna do it, and all of this goodwill is gonna go down the tubes like that.
even the fans, you could almost hear the fans
Yeah,
started to go from like cheers to
cheering
almost
to
like you
like
heard like one or two
groaning.
boos.
Yeah.
But then once he mentioned to bring the Shield back together,
Then they
that's
were
when
like,
everybody
okay.
roared. But I was like, "Oh my God, thank goodness."
Yeah. So, I mean, I've said it on a bunch of groups and everything, but the best option, and a lot of people hate it because, you know, a lot of people think it's a match that's too small for his caliber of talent and whatnot. But they already teased it on Raw last week. They're already having him, you know, face off against him, you know, in a way in this 6-man tag match, which we'll get to later. But the best match for me, for him, for WrestleMania, and the best feud to kind of ease him back in, have him go up against Corbin, a guy that even the smarkiest of the smarks hate Corbin right now. So you'll have the fans squarely on Reigns' side, and you'll be able to keep that momentum. Don't have him even come close to the Universal title unless Seth imposes upon it until maybe SummerSlam, and even that's kind of pushing it for me. I would say give it to him at, you know, give it to him at a smaller pay-per-view in like the fall.
Hmm.
So
I
that
agree.
it doesn't seem like you're giving him this big coronation again.
Hmm. I agree. If first of all, Baron kind of made comments of him that were pretty like off the cuff while he was
Exactly.
in his situation, getting his treatment and whatnot. So that's one reason why the feud against him. And then I'm not sure. It's really hard to tell because with the the Scottish Psycho,
Mm-hmm.
they keep pushing him and making you think that they're gonna bring this guy to the top, but then they kind of do some storylines that you're like, wait a minute, he's still not there yet. So he can
Well,
feud with Baron and maybe even feud with him.
well, I mean that's the issue with WWE just in general, and it's probably going to get even worse again now with Reigns back. Is it seems like everyone outside of Reigns and maybe one or two others, it's like they'll start building them and then they'll drop down a second. It's like one step forward, two steps back. We saw the same thing with Braun, over the last couple of years.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
yeah. So like we talked about, you said, they, Reigns was talking about, his leukemia and all of that, talking about how he never technically lost the Universal title. And then he calls out Seth Rollins, and I think everyone who knows anything about pro wrestling was like, "Oh God, they're gonna do it. They're gonna freaking do it." But luckily they didn't. Seth comes out. Roman says, "Hey, we don't know what's going to happen with Dean. We don't know if he's staying or going. Let's get the band back together one more time." Seth was hesitant at first, but then Reigns convinced him. One funny moment, and this was perfect camera shooting, and like I don't even know if they had this planned or anything, but you had Seth kind of sitting there like on the ropes thinking, and the camera was in such a way that Reigns could stick his head in behind him, kind of looking at him, smirking at him, like, "Come on, let's make the decision now."
Mm, yeah, those three have great
Oh
chemistry,
yeah.
and obviously with I'm amazed how even during WWE shows the commentators discussing the fact that it's no new news that Dean has said he doesn't want to sign again,
Mm-hmm.
and there's potential a possibility of going to AEW, which I
See,
found it funny when Renee made her little comment, greener pastures, and even Corey was like, "What do you mean greener pastures? There's nothing. This is a WWE. There's nothing greener than this."
yeah. Well,
But
that's the funny and like that's what's been kind of creating a lot of people. A lot of people now think that this whole thing of him potentially leaving and the rumors and the implication that he potentially could go to AEW all being a work, and so it definitely makes the next couple of months very intriguing. That's for sure.
yeah,
Um,
and even Batista was being said that he was being offered a lot of
mhm,
money to take some kind of like I think they called it Legends contract where he will have like a much slower pace, um not so many work days a
mhm.
month, and when he showed up last week on Raw, I was like, wait a minute, this is pretty cool that a guy that was being mentioned so much of the possibility of jumping ship actually still wants that one big main event fight in WrestleMania against Hunter. That'll be great.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, so we we then get you know, but yeah, I mean, like you just said, these next couple of months, this next year, honestly, is going to be one of the most interesting times in pro wrestling, just in general, in a long time, because this is the first time that you really have a financially stable and financially willing to throw around money company that could be a legitimate alternative and a legitimate competitor to WWE.
Hmm.
It gets people excited. Um,
It
but
is.
but like I said, Rollins thinks about it for a while, then finally says, "Okay, I'm in." Reigns calls out Ambrose. Ambrose comes out to the ramp and thinks about it, thinks about coming in, but then before he can even do anything, Elias attacks from behind and hits him with a guitar. Uh, Roman and Seth come down to try to protect Ambrose. You were thinking that potentially, this could be the opportunity, but
Hmm.
then Ambrose kind of just goes away and moves on. What do you think of this whole thing just in general? I mean, like I said before, wasn't the like if they don't do it again next week, that's one thing. Like then I'm okay with it. If they kind of keep it where it's not always him starting the show, then I'm okay with it. But and in this situation with them trying to do some longer term, episode wide storytelling, I was fine with it. So overall, I'm okay with it. It was cool to see what they do with it, and we'll talk about that more later on. But what did you think about this first segment overall?
I liked it. I think they definitely have to um, turn a negative into a positive. The fact that Roman Reigns is back so soon. I know there's been, unfortunately, lots of different channels that have been calling it a work. I don't think so. I just think that, they're using a negative and turn it into a positive. So I can see them next week, especially depending how the Fastlane pay-per-view goes. I can see the Shield opening up again on Raw, but I agree with you. I think that they should start kind of like pushing a little bit back where, okay, after maybe 3 Raws in a row of Reigns being in the introduction, they should kind of like pull it back a little bit and then remember that there were people that kind of held the fort while he was gone. So don't throw those folks back to the forgotten realm. Keep using them to push forward. And like you said, just bring Reigns little by little up instead of
Mm,
just doing it immediately.
yeah.
Like recognize that he's been gone for 4 months.
And not only
So
that, but that's gonna anger the fans even more if you make them the focal point, because for the last couple of months, pretty much ever since Reigns went out, and even before that though, um, the big focal point of the shows, and it's been the big rumor. It's gonna everyone's anticipating it being the main event and all of that. Yes, it headlined tonight's episode, but if you make it seem like you're not focusing on it as much as the fans would want you to, they're not going to be happy about it. And I'm talking about the what we're expecting to be a triple threat women's match at Mania.
definitely,
But
I agree.
we'll talk about that more in a little bit. After that, we get McIntyre, Corbin, Lashley, and Leo Rush being interviewed backstage. They talk about how they destroyed the. McIntyre talks about how he destroyed the Shield before, and he doesn't understand why they're living in the past. Corbin says that they're ignoring the real story because those three have a match tonight, and they're going to show us where the power really lies. Lashley says he's going to remind Balor he's holding the Intercontinental title on borrowed time. And then Baron says that they're going to show Kurt Angle he can't hang with the premier athletes, which was kind of funny because you're not Tony Nese. But yeah, so they have a match next. The match itself wasn't terrible. Wasn't anything spectacular, but it was a decent match. The heels end up getting the win, and then they proceed to put the beat down on them. And I was half expecting that to be the moment where the Shield was going to come out together and reunite.
I thought the same thing actually, but I'm glad they didn't because then I think it would have been too soon, especially since Dean had left
Mm-hmm.
with no answer yet. So that we knew that we were going to get an answer, but for some reason, I also thought they were going to come out to save the faces of the destruction. But let me say one thing: these three guys, McIntyre, Corbin, and Lashley, I actually enjoy this trio. I think
Mm-hmm.
definitely Corbin shows off his his skills. I think Corbin's a great, not great, he's a good wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
His deep six maneuver and his finishing move, which right now it eludes my mind the name of
End
it.
of days.
End of days, and especially that where he goes under the one side of the ropes and then comes back quickly to the other side. I definitely like his style, and I think they meshed really well. And it kind of any downfall that he has as a singles competitor within this group, it kind of goes away, and it showcases McIntyre as he's great as well. But I think McIntyre as a leader will be better. But still, they just meshed together, and kind of feel bad for Leo because Leo had all the spotlight during Bobby's matches. Now he's kind of like a second thought. But so they did really well using him as he kept on like interfering in the match.
One thing that I wish they didn't really do it all that much. Maybe they did it once or twice when he was in NXT as well. But like I kind of wish Morrow was calling Raw matches because he'd definitely bring this up because of his background. But I wish that they would hype up the legitimacy of this group as showing how much of a threat they are. Because Lashley obviously has, his history in Bellator and all of that. And Corbin was a Golden Gloves champion in boxing. So, you could easily bring that stuff up and, show that they're a very real threat.
They definitely are. If used correctly, I agree. If WWE someday would kind of legitimize three-man teams, I know they did it very well with the New Day, but that's really the only one that we had. Unfortunately, the Wyatt family didn't get to shine the way we would have liked. But this trio is pretty good.
Yeah. What I would love to see, especially with how many trios there seems to be, and I know there are too many titles and certain titles are thrown to the wayside already in WWE and all of that. But I would love to see them because you see it in just about every other promotion. I would love to see a trios title.
Yeah, but I think it could work. I think the fans would probably, if done correctly, the fans would probably approve of it, and it doesn't have to be something that comes out every single week. But
Well,
it could
I
be
would
like
use it very much like how they're using the women's tag titles now.
Yes, correct. And even go to NXT and defend it on NXT. Why not? Yeah, definitely.
Because between Raw, SmackDown, and NXT, look how many trios you have right now. You've got the Shield, you've got this, League of Evil between Baron Corbin, Drew McIntyre, and Bobby Lashley. You've got the New Day. You've got Undisputed Era over on NXT. You've got Sanity, who we never really see anymore, but,
True.
I'm sure there are one or two others that I'm missing out on because they're never used either. But, you could definitely do it.
Yeah, definitely. It's something that they should probably. Damn it! If they venture with the Hardcore Championship once, they venture with the European title once, get with the times and throw in a six-man tag title as well. And even in the female side, at one point I thought that's where they were going with the Riot Squad, and then when we had Paige, Mandy, and Sonya, I thought they were going even before that when it was Paige, who was it? Paige, Charlotte, and Becky.
Yep.
That was a trio right there. So
they
keep kind of hinting on that they're gonna start doing this. The Wyatt was another one that they hinted with, and it just kind of falls through the side. But this is a great opportunity of you got the fans excited again, because really I feel like the fans are really excited once again, and throw it out there. If you're gonna keep doing these six-man tags, then hey, why not just take an advantage of it and bring it out? And there's gonna be people that are gonna complain because people complain about too many titles, but if done correctly, like you said, if it's something that gets defended through, let's call it what it is, all three brands, and you can even throw the NXT UK out there as well, it could work.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And that's the thing, and we talked about this earlier about them, keeping up this momentum post-Mania. you have a lot of fans, even a lot of the smarkier fans and a lot of the very cynical fans who have been watching for years on end and are thinking, oh, this is just going to be same old, same old. You have a lot of fans thinking, wow, this is really starting to pick up and they're starting to get their act together. And as long as you do Mania right, for one, and then keep up that momentum, WWE could get back on track very
Hmm.
quickly.
They
So
have.
what?
I was gonna say they have the talent, and right
Oh,
now they have the
absolutely,
momentum.
absolutely. And with how they're kind of making it to where, at least as of a couple of weeks ago, where they're basically saying, it's like a territory system where talent can transition between brands as they please. That could help spicing things up very quickly as well.
And if they take advantage of a lot of these maybe new to the WWE only fans, but obviously experienced to the indie fans. All these names are starting to come into NXT and
Mm-hmm.
then showing up. You have like just like Ricochet just showed up, and Gargano and Champa and even Aleister Black for that to a certain extent. You still got Matt Riddle.
Mm-hmm.
You have EC3, which is kind of there but not really. You have Cassius Ohno. You have names, Keith Lee. You have names
Yeah.
in NXT that can easily translate to the main roster the way they're doing it, where you're still part of NXT but you're showing up on Raw and SmackDown,
And
and the fans know who they are, so
mm-hmm.
you're gonna have something there.
And not only that, but you also have a bunch of guys who have either recently signed and debuted on NXT, like a Punishment Martinez, or you have guys that have signed to WWE now, and fans know of them, but haven't even debuted in NXT yet. And you can do a lot of things with them as well, like an ACH or a Kushida.
Hmm.
So,
Definitely.
yep. So let's move on to Heavy Machinery being interviewed backstage, and apparently they're the black sheep of the tag division now, because all of the other tag teams and albeit all jobber tag teams, but
Yeah.
it makes sense. But these jobber tag teams are making fun of them, and Heavy Machinery doesn't like it all that much, so they end up getting booked into a gauntlet match later on. Um, but yeah, this was just kind of weird because, like, yes, like, and they kind of did reference it, but like, why do these tag teams have any right to talk? Because they all suck. I mean, come
Well,
on.
well, let me start by saying that I think not Tucker, Dozer.
Yeah.
I thought it was hilarious for him to use his real voice
Mm-hmm.
in the
Yeah.
interview. That was great. You could hear the
Yeah.
crowd laughing in the background. I was kind of afraid it was gonna get lost, but I'm glad the crowd picked it up. That was
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah. Oh
But
yeah. Well,
they, you're
they're great. Um,
oh they are.
and I'm hoping that they don't, because like knowing Vince McMahon's propensity, I'm hoping that they don't just simply become like a comedy tag team
Mhm,
gimmick and they're just lost in the shuffle. I
mhm.
I hope they get a real push.
Yeah, I do too, and I agree with what you said. The gauntlet, it didn't really push them. It showcased a little bit what they can do as a team and individually, especially when Tucker was taken out.
Hmm.
But it wasn't. It was like out of nowhere, and like you said, the fact that these three tag teams are more like jobber teams than anything, and it hurts me to see the ascension what they've become
Oh
after the
God,
dominance that they had in
don't even get
NXT at
me
the beginning.
started. Don't even get me started on the Ascension.
But um, I really hope that this team, Heavy Machinery, gets pushed well. And even though they're kind of funny and stuff, they still have their persona and they have a good chemistry together. But worst case scenario, if for some reason the face doesn't work, I can see these two guys as really incredibly bad heels as well. But right now, I hope they push them as what they are, because obviously funny teams do work, because the New Day has
Oh
done
yeah.
it great job. The Bar, when I remember when the Bar was thought of like this is not gonna work, they've matched perfectly, and they do a great job. So hopefully they'll push Heavy Machinery well, and we can see some good tag team feuds once again.
Yeah. Oh, I would hope so as well. I'm hoping that the tag division. We'll talk more about the tag division a little bit later, but I definitely hope that this is a tag team renaissance. We've said it so many different times with WWE, and it's always seemed to fall flat. But like we talked about before, with AEW on the rise, and that's gonna be their forte. I have a feeling that WWE is gonna try to counter by solidifying their tag division. So the next match scheduled for one fall
One fall.
is Natalya versus Ruby Riott. It feels so good doing that finally after so long on hiatus. So Natalya and Ruby Riott have a match, and surprise, surprise, albeit with not really shenanigans, but some controversy. Natalya wins with a small package, and I just don't know. I just don't know what they're doing with the Riot Squad, or Ruby Riott for that matter.
It's first of all, for me, it's sad to even say that she never won the NXT Women's title. I think that she should have at least carried that title at one point.
Agreed, but
Not,
I mean, to be fair to her, because she got called up very shortly after Asuka finally relinquished it. So she never really had that opportunity because she was in the era of Asuka.
Okay, agreed. But now that she's with the main roster and with the Riot Squad, I think that either they're gonna use this trio well, or they should let her shine more on her own, because she is one of those ladies that she can wrestle. Okay, she has that unique look, but at the same, she's not trying to show off her physical attributes like some of the other female wrestlers. She has her own unique persona, and she can wrestle. But for some reason, lately, she's more of a jobber than anything else, and I just don't understand why her, especially, and no disrespect to the other two ladies from the Riot Squad, but you can use Liv more as the
Absolutely.
jobber versus using Ruby Riott.
And people would be okay with it because while, yes, I'm sure Liv and Sarah do have their fan bases, they weren't used nearly as much on NXT, and there weren't that many people that were really behind either one of them in NXT, or now for that matter. I definitely like Ruby Riott. I've liked her ever since she debuted in NXT, but the other two just kind of fall flat for me. Speaking of someone who falls flat and has always fallen flat, shall we talk about the elephant in the room afterwards, or do we just skip it?
Nah, let's talk about it.
Okay, I warned you. The red carpet was put out yet again.
Oh.
The goddamn walkway. The ramp is not a walkway, Vince. It's not your own personal not your own personal runway for your damn models.
I don't understand. I don't understand it. I don't get it.
And not only that, but like, if you've heard, them talk about her in NXT, and they even referenced it in like when she first debuted on the main roster, you have a gimmick that's based on her real life that would actually endear her to fans. Even if you wanted her to be a heel, it would still be fitting for WWE and wouldn't feel like she's basically using WWE as her own personal walkway and she doesn't give two craps about wrestling.
I don't understand because they tried this with Emma transitioning to Emmalina.
Mm-hmm.
And
they used this. They
flat.
tried this with Eva Marie too, and it fell flat.
And nothing positive came out of that. So here's when I started seeing Lacey Evans on NXT, at first her gimmick, I was not having it. For some reason, it didn't.
I mean, I've never liked her gimmick.
But when she started on the mic, just going off on folks, and when they started highlighting more her right punch, I was like, I can see this working. Like, she can be a heel, and she has the looks, she has the size and the strength to actually make me believe, like, hey, she's a true heel. But this going up and down as a fashion runway thing, I don't get it.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, and I hate to say it because it really is true. And you may disagree with me, but right now, outside of maybe Charlotte, but who are the two biggest heels, one male and one female, in the company right now that are almost universally booed?
The two biggest heels on Raw currently, or
one's on Raw and one's on SmackDown. We already talked about one. It's Lacey Evans. The other one is kind of weirdly starting to turn face.
Man, why am I thinking about this so much?
He has a very similar kind of gimmick, in a sense.
Not EC3, correct?
No. Well, because he's on Raw. Well, technically he's on both, so never mind. He used to be a champion a couple of weeks ago. That should give it away right there.
I was thinking about AJ, but I don't think AJ was a couple of weeks ago.
No.
Nakamura.
No. Tag titles.
Oh, tag title. Man, what is wrong with me today? I know the Usos won.
Yes, but who did they beat?
And it was the Miz.
Yep, the Miz. The Miz is who I'm thinking of, because if you really dig into his character and even go back into his, into his beginning and everything, and while, yes, he said that he was a wrestling fan and all of that, his gimmick, in essence, is really, I don't care about wrestling, I'm using this as a platform to become an actor. And that's pretty much what Lacey Evans is doing now. Where she's saying, I don't care about wrestling. I don't want to be a wrestler. I want to be a runway model. And I'm going to use the entrance ramp as my own little runway.
I think if I would have never...
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that if I would have never seen her on NXT, I could see that, and I agree with you. I guess the bad thing is that I did see her on NXT, and she balanced out that coming in, oh, sassy, now I'm a true lady, and you women are not.
Mm-hmm.
But then she fought like really like a good wrestler.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll agree with that, and that's why I said if they did that, like, if they emphasized her, military stuff and whatnot, then it could maybe work to where, like, yeah, you despise her, but, you have to respect her because she, she's a good fighter and everything. But, like, those, it seems like in today's WWE where, fans appreciate, wrestlers no matter what side of the fence they are nowadays, the only way to really get true heel heat now is by basically saying, I don't want to be a wrestler.
That's it. That's a really good point.
So yeah, that's my Lacey Evans rant for the week. I'm sure I'll talk about it more tomorrow and the next week and the next week and the next week until who knows what happens with her. Can you please just get off my TV screen? So after that, we get Stephanie talking to the hosts of Saturday Night's Live Weekend Update, who are apparently going to be like the guest hosts of WrestleMania or something, I guess. And the one dude is a complete doofus, apparently. I don't know. I haven't watched Saturday Night Live in forever, so I don't know what the hell's going on. We'll talk about them more later, though. So then we get Triple H coming out, and he talks about everything that happened last week, and with Batista attacking Ric Flair, and this one was just weird. Like, I get that, this is the reality era and everything, but I feel like between, all the Twitter stuff between Becky and Ronda, and now this, they're just going a little too far. It was so weird hearing Triple H continuously, it's not like he even just said it once, continuously calling Ric Flair Richard Fleer. And and then he even went, I was half anticipating him to go full on, Triple H 2011 and say, this isn't, Triple H facing Batista. This is Paul Levesque facing Dave Bautista.
Yeah, I think that was one of the bigger disappointments for me at the end of that promo. Yes, the whole continuously naming him by his real name, Ric Flair, I think it was kind of weird. Maybe once, if you would have done it once
Yeah.
and that's it, we get it. But then he, towards the end, he's like, when you look into my eyes, you're gonna see that this is not Triple H. I was like, this is the perfect moment for you to, just drop your real name, drop
Which
his
I
real
was
name.
surprised. Yeah, that was the weird thing, though. He used Flair's real name the entire promo, and then he didn't use his own at the end. It was so weird, and go one way or the other, I feel. If you.
Hmm.
If you want to go full on if you want to go full on kayfabe is dead and just blow it up and bury it completely, then okay, just use real names, period. But don't switch from one to the other on a whim. It's just weird.
Yeah, he kind of it. It felt like he led us to that point, to the right to the edge, and when we're about to jump with him, he just dropped us like, no, I'm not gonna go there, because
Mm-hmm.
it's all the way to that moment, the way he was expressing himself, letting him know this is not part of this ain't a character talking, this is not Triple H, this is not just another headliner, this is not another fight, this is personal, this is real. And if you're gonna drop Ric Flair's real name to make it even more real, more personal, damn it, the least you could have done was drop your own
Yeah,
real name.
exactly. Drop your own name, and while it's not really much different than his character name, drop Dave Bautista.
But I think they had something good going on. I think they that was a really big missed opportunity there.
Oh, absolutely, because that's what I was half expecting when he was about to say, this isn't, another, headliner. This is, a real fight. So, yeah, that's that. Um, we get a backstage interview with Stephanie saying, that Rousey laid down the title, it was disrespectful, yada yada yada, and that they're bringing Becky back, and they're gonna have a one-on-one match for the women's title between her and Charlotte. This whole thing is just weird. Like, I get they're finally getting to the crux of it, and we'll talk about it more later. But a lot of this just felt so forced.
Yeah, I think where it got me was, so Ronda drops the belt, but never verbally said I relinquish it. She just dropped the belt,
Yeah.
and we all assume, and I would say we assume correctly, that was what she was doing. She was protesting that because the fight that I want is not going to happen, the fight that the fans want is not going to happen. Here you go. Those of us that are following the Twitter feud between her and Becky, it makes sense even for her. I think she should have showed more emotion when she dropped the belt, but still we get why she was doing it. And then it was really weird how Stephanie nonchalant comes out, well, because of this that happened, we are gonna do it right, and we're gonna reinstate Becky. I'm like, sweet. So reinstate Becky to fight against Ronda, maybe even a triple threat match in WrestleMania. No, we're gonna fight next week on Sunday's pay-per-view, Charlotte versus Becky for the title.
Well, I'll talk more about what I was honestly thinking they were gonna do and what I was hoping they were gonna do when we talk about the main event. But yeah, this isn't exactly how I would have booked it either.
Mm-hmm.
We get a backstage thing with Dean Ambrose getting ready for his match. Reigns tries to talk to him. Roman, this was a kind of funny line. It's like, I thought we were past hanging out in the bowels of the arena. He says, I hope you know that, you have a seat in the locker room with us, and you can talk to us about anything. And Ambrose basically just shrugs him off, saying, I have to focus on my match. So the next match, scheduled for one fall.
One fall?
Well, technically 4 falls, because it's a gauntlet match. Well, no, 3 falls. Is the gauntlet match, like I said, between Heavy Machinery and the Job Squad, I'll call them. That would be Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder, B-Team, and Ascension. And surprise, surprise, Heavy Machinery beats them all in relatively quick fashion. Not really much to talk about here.
No, I think we kind of went over it earlier, and we both agreed, it was kind of weird.
I mean, I'm okay with it in a way of, like, I'm glad that they're actually pushing Heavy Machinery, but it, like we said, it's still kind of weird that, this is the route that they're going of them, like, caring so much about their feelings that they're, I mean, if it leads to something, I'm okay with it. I'm of the mentality that I'll wait to see what happens further. We get next we get more SNL guys stuff. And apparently the white dude Colin is completely oblivious to modern WWE because he names a bunch of 80s and 90s guys. EC3 once again is just in the back staring at himself and doing absolutely nothing. We get
I thought it was kind of funny, but yeah, I don't like seeing EC3 just part of one quick funny moment and that's it.
You know what it kind of reminds me of? But it doesn't fit his character nearly as much as it fit this other character. And this is why I'll hold out hope for EC3 is that it kind of reminds me of how Elias started on the main roster, where he was just kind of drifting through the backstage area. But it actually worked for him because he is the drifter, so that was a little different. Then we get Titus O'Neil appearing. Wants to get a picture with Michael. No Way Jose makes a random one-off appearance on Raw. I wish you would do more. Another NXT flop. There are way too many to name. And then we get a Tori Wilson video for her Hall of Fame induction. Well, first off, like, do you have any comment on that whole weird backstage thing?
And I just keep asking myself, how much are these guys getting paid to just show up to a show and really do nothing?
Yeah.
Titus O'Neil, EC3, and even No Way Jose, who I thought his character fit perfectly in NXT, and I thought they were gonna do more with him. And when they called him up to the main roster, I was like, oh my gosh, will his persona actually work on the main roster? And I guess it works, just to do the little conga line and disappear until next week.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, it's funny. It seems like a lot of these NXT call-ups who were actually given, real work and did things both in and outside of the ring in NXT now are basically just used as like one-off spots on Raw. We just named 3 in a matter of 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Next we get Charlotte being interviewed. She, thinks it's ridiculous that Becky might not sign the hold harmless agreement, yada yada yada. She, talks about her huge Irish ego, which I personally was like, ooh, how dare you. She won't be able to resist, and she thinks she'll win the title. And pretty much just Charlotte being Charlotte. Not really much to talk about here.
She does her persona very well.
Yeah, she does. A little too well. A Dean Ambrose segment in the back again. Seth Rollins this time rolls up and tries to talk him into joining them again. And once again, Dean is kind of like, nah. What?
I was gonna say it's they did well, both Reigns going and then Seth kind of swallowing his pride after what Reigns said. You live once, you don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow. So it was kind of cool him saying, hey, you know what? We're brothers. That's what brothers do. We fight. We fight against each other, and then we fight against others. So it was a good segment. And Dean knows how to play that Dean Ambrose character very well.
Oh yes, he does. Yeah, I love Lunatic Dean. Next we get Elias in the ring doing his shtick, and while I liked him going face, I hate to say it because I want to cheer for him and everything. And personally, I was cheering for everything he was saying because I'm from New York, so New York, Philly. Yeah, I agreed with most of everything he was saying. But
so did Corey.
Yeah, of course. But you just gotta love how, because he is so knowledgeable and so in the know on sports and stuff, that he can pull out pretty much anything and say anything he wants to get the fans riled up. It's great.
Yeah, he's really good on the mic. He knows when to pause. He knows his facial gestures, his movements. It's just sometimes I feel like he's about to bust out laughing, but he just keeps that straight face and looks around and then he smirks like, yeah, I'm enjoying this. Y'all keep booing me. I'm just gonna keep going. Yeah. He knows how to get the crowd going. As a face, he did it, but he's definitely better as a heel.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. So the next match scheduled for one fall
One fall.
is Dean Ambrose versus Elias. And I mean, this was a decent match, nothing too crazy. But we learned, the finish is Elias pinning Dean with the drift away. And Rollins and Reigns come out to the entrance as Dean lies there on the mat. They come out and ask him, what's it gonna be? Let's do this. And Dean thinks about it for a while, takes a lap around the ring, walks out of the ring, goes up the stairs for a second, and then of course Corbin, Lashley, and McIntyre crash the party, start attacking Rollins and Reigns, and that gets Dean to finally begrudgingly come in for the save, and we get the reunion finally. First off, real quick, I mean, there wasn't too much to talk about the match, but, any comments on the match itself?
Nah, Elias has won me over.
Oh,
Because when he
absolutely.
was an NXT, I kind of didn't understand where they were going with his persona. I remember in an interview that Triple H gave to a podcast, they asked him about Velveteen Dream
Mm-hmm.
and how great Velveteen Dream was, and he actually didn't acknowledge so much Velveteen, but he actually talked about how from day one he felt that Elias had the total package to be on the main roster.
Hmm.
And I thought that was the funniest thing I had ever heard. But
Well,
little by little, he's become a great character and a good wrestler as well.
Well, that's what I've heard, Triple H has said for a while now is Elias was always more of a main roster character than an NXT one. And you can see that now. But yeah, I mean, Elias has been great. This whole post-match thing was very well done on multiple levels. You had, Dean, you had everyone playing this off right. Dean with his little walk around the ring. And I was thinking he was going to keep on going and, do a whole lap, but then he jumped the barricade and started walking up the ramp, and I was thinking he was going to leave. But at the same time, I think everyone kind of saw where this was going to go, where, Corbin, Lashley, and McIntyre were going to attack, and that's how we were going to get the Shield reunion.
Yeah, and
What?
I was gonna say kudos to the camera people as well, because the way they were jumping from the in ring to Ambrose, in ring to Ambrose, and all of a sudden Ambrose just reacts. That kind of built it as well, because they didn't allow the beatdown to be so much where it would have not made sense for Rollins and Reigns to be able to fight back. They just gave it enough time, which was pretty quick, but still just enough of a beatdown. And then all of a sudden Ambrose comes in, and all three are still fresh enough to be able to beat them up. I think they did a really good job.
Exactly. Yeah, and the way they handled it, where Dean or Seth and Roman put their fists out, and you still have Dean saying, I don't want to do this, and all of that, and being within himself, and then he finally puts it in.
Seth screamed, "Come on!" twice.
But yes, still that was a very well done segment. After we get the official announcement that the Shield will wrestle Corbin, McIntyre, and Lashley at Fastlane. So the next match scheduled for one fall is Sasha Banks versus Tamina, and I mean this was one of those matches, one of those one-on-one matches for a tag team match prior to the pay-per-view to get some reverse momentum, because Tamina won, and I think we all know that Sasha and Bayley are going over at Fastlane.
What happened to Nia Jax? She is in the same boat as Braun Strowman. They go up, they go down. They go up, they go down. I
Well,
just don't know.
because I mean, I hate to say it, it's true, but it's kind of the Big Show effect, where each of them are just the monsters in the division, and they're basically just used as needed. If you need a monster heel for a face to slay, you bring them in. If you need, a face that has credibility that you want to push for a while, you bring them in. It's just like they're basically used as needed instead of really getting a big push on their own merit.
Yeah, and definitely, like you said, it's almost not believable to see them win this
Mm-hmm.
upcoming pay-per-view. So,
No.
like you said, it's just one of those. Let's let them win the singles match however they want it, and then go to the pay-per-view and almost know the obvious. But
Yep.
it was one of those matches that it felt more like a filler, like you said, the traditional right before the big match. Let's either do a singles match if it's a tag team, or let's do a trio or tag team match if it's a singles match. The famous before the pay-per-view matches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that is WWE's MO pretty much, though, at this point, the whole reverse momentum thing, where they give whoever's gonna lose at the pay-per-view a win ahead of time on the previous show, just to make their credibility go up, even though everyone who follows WWE knows what it means at this point. So after that, we get more SNL idiot stuff. Um, you know, uh, Colin says he's not afraid of anyone, but of course he bumps into Braun Strowman. Uh, Braun calls him funny, takes his Mets hat, which I enjoyed. Uh, and then Colin stupidly, and you're lucky that you're asking it in this day and age and not back in the 70s or 80s, because you would have gotten murdered if you asked this question back then. He asked the question non grata for pro wrestling, and that is if any of this is real. And Braun proceeds to pick him up and says, "What do you think? Is this real to you?" So well done, Braun.
Very, very well done. I thought he was gonna punch him, but
Yeah.
very well done.
And then, like, when we get back from break, he's still doing it. Agent's trying to have him drop him. Braun says he'll see him at WrestleMania. We'll see. I really hope that they don't just put Braun in some sort of comedy thing again, but I see it coming already.
Mm-hmm.
Like we talked
Especially
about before, Braun was so high just a year and a half ago, and now he's he's a joke now. Honestly,
definitely is. It didn't help his matches with Reigns, where the build up to those matches was him destroying Reigns, and then Reigns beats him. It didn't help him looking almost indestructible against Lesnar, but then he lost to Lesnar multiple championship matches, and then the last thing that probably killed a lot of his character was winning the tag team titles with a kid.
well, I mean, here's the thing. The Reigns feud was actually good, which I was
No, that was
surprised
good.
about because everyone was anticipating what you just said, where Braun was going to do all this destruction before the match, but Reigns would inevitably win the actual match. But that actually didn't happen. Braun actually won a good portion of those matches. So he looked really strong in those matches. What really hurt him was him having to face Brock without being able to get a win. The Nicholas stuff just made him look like a joke. Yes, he looked strong because he could beat two guys by himself, but it didn't exactly help his character. So I don't know where they're going with Braun at this point, honestly, and it's not good.
Yeah, I don't see him this character that he is today. I don't see this character being a title holder. I really don't.
I mean, like we've seen with certain other people, they can definitely turn people around on a dime, but yeah, they're gonna have to do a lot of work at this point to turn him around. Hell, I mean, and well, he didn't really feel like a credible champion throughout his entire reign, but they probably made the one person that we thought, oh, he could never be, his character could never be hurt, and they proceeded to make him a running joke. They turned him into a champion, and the person I am talking about is Bray Wyatt.
Yeah, Bray Wyatt definitely his reign was a little bit too late. I keep
Yeah. Oh,
comparing it
it
to
was absolutely too late.
I compare it to Ember Moon finally winning the NXT title. That was just way too late as well.
The Ember one I'm okay with because, you didn't want, like, yes, you could have done it there and whatnot, but, like, they wanted to keep Asuka's streak alive, so I understood why they did it. Bray, it was just like, especially with all of his talking points of him saying, oh, I'm a god and all of this. Well, if you're a god, then you should be winning. You didn't see The Undertaker losing on a regular basis.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I agree.
So the next match scheduled for one fall
One fall.
is the Raw Tag Team Championship match between Aleister Black and Ricochet and the Revival. And um correct me if I'm wrong, but as soon as you saw Rude and Gable come out before that break, you knew exactly what was happening.
Yep, it was almost obvious that they were gonna interfere.
Oh yeah, I saw it. Um, and I don't know if this will happen at Fastlane or if it's happening at Mania, but it looks like we're going towards a triple threat for the tag titles between these three teams. Good on Ricochet and Aleister for you know for getting an opportunity and doing pretty well. I love their I loved how they did, after the match when uh when the Revival, or not the Revival, Rude and Gable attacked and everything. They did their fake outs together at the end, which was great. Um, so are they trying to turn Rude and Gable heel here? That's what it seems to me.
I think to have a triple threat match is they're gonna have to do it because uh, obviously the fans are good in that match. The fans are gonna be more towards Ricochet and Aleister Black, which by the way, that like you said that last flips that they did in together, that was pretty well synchronized
Oh
because
yeah.
Ricochet allowed Aleister to hit the ropes first, and as he's bouncing off, then Ricochet hit the ropes. So it could have been pretty disastrous if not done correctly.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that they're gonna have to make Rude and Gable not so much heels, but kind of show them like, hey, we kind of ticked off that we don't get a rematch, but you guys are just coming out of nowhere, out of NXT, already called rookies previously by and on SmackDown by Rusev.
Mm-hmm.
So it you got you got to give them that kind of anger to make them look more believable that hey, we really want to come back for our titles because the goody guys that they were before this wouldn't have worked, especially not with the faces of this match truly being Black and Ricochet.
Yeah.
But I must say, as great as they've looked together in these past few weeks, tagging together, I kind of feel bad for the Revival because the Revival truly looked. Here's another team on NXT that looked tremendous,
Mm-hmm.
and since their call up, just like the Ascension, I have no idea why they have not been able to translate that to the main roster. And it's not because they don't try, because they have put some incredible matches these past few weeks. Even in losing, they've had some really amazing matches. They are a good team.
Yeah.
But
And unfortunately, like we talked about earlier, I think them getting the tag team titles in the first place, the only reason why they got the tag team titles a few weeks ago, it was basically as an appeasement to say, no, stick around, don't leave us, because they put in their release request. Um, and I don't know, like, do you, like, big speculation time. Do you think they drop the titles at Mania and then go off their merry way onto AEW?
I really think that's the best for them. But again, here's my thing. This is I've been arguing this in a lot of forums. So yes, I believe that there's a lot of talent that is not being used correctly.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, there's so much talent that how do you focus on so many folks? You know what I mean? Somebody has to be a jobber, and somebody's gonna have to, even looking good, still lose.
I agree
If
with
all
that, but I mean, if you look at some other companies, the big compare or the big one I'll compare it to, and granted they run their promotion a lot differently, and wins and losses really do matter, and like you can do, like, they do it in a way where everyone feels like, even if they're not at the top of the card, they feel like they matter, is New Japan. Like, they make it to where even if you are in essence a comedy jobber like a Toru Yano, you still want to see him for a different reason. And WWE used to be able to do that back like in the Attitude Era. Even the lower card guys had storylines and had a reason to be there and a reason for you to want them to watch. And the reasoning for that was for this precise reason, that they didn't want guys to feel like they were not being used to their fullest capabilities and walk off to WCW.
and it was also a little bit easier because they would use local talent
Mm-hmm.
to keep these guys looking strong. Because right now, if that was the case, you could have the Revival obviously showcasing their talent by whooping a local tag team
Mm-hmm.
versus now you put them against um, Gable and Rude, and it's gonna be very difficult for Gable and Rude to job to them. But then them losing with the titles doesn't make them look any better.
Yeah.
So I can see them dropping the titles and then leaving, but then it makes me think what happens when AEW is saturated of so much talent. How will they be treated differently, especially if they don't win the titles off the bat and they just start jobbing to other or losing to other teams? So I know a lot of people have been on this cruise control that anybody that's not being used correctly in WWE to jump to this company that has yet to put on a show. But if there's so much talent in that one company, someone's gonna have to job to make somebody else look good.
Oh
So
no,
that's
I definitely agree with that. And I'm sure there are going to be guys in AEW that people are going to say, they're not being used to their fullest extent. But like I mentioned, because of their history in a Ring of Honor in New Japan, I think the Young Bucks and Cody and Kenny are going to have enough savvy to be able to use everyone properly to where fans don't think anyone is truly being buried.
hmm
Um,
yeah, most definitely. I could see that, especially if they don't have a weekly show like WWE where you see the same teams or the same person losing every week. It
well,
kind of
they're gonna have a weekly show starting in October,
oh
but
wow.
the difference is that I think they're gonna do it like Ring of Honor does, where it's gonna be, or like NXT does, where it's gonna be taped on like a monthly or what have you basis, so they can rotate. And also, I think they'll have a better understanding of, because I don't know exactly how long the show's gonna be or whatnot, but they'll probably rotate guys in and out
hmm
more than WWE does. That's the thing about WWE, is that, for how big their roster is, they really only use, a handful of guys every week, and they use the same handful of guys every week instead of rotating guys in and out.
hmm Makes sense.
So then we get our main event segment uh, with Becky and Charlotte. A lot of talking about, everything that has happened in the past. Uh, and then we, Becky signs uh, I forget what exactly they called it. The no harm the harm no
Yeah,
harm contract or whatever.
yeah, the clause.
Um, and then Ronda Rousey comes back, storms into the ring, and says she wants her title back. Um, Stephanie pretty much is forced to say, "Okay, here you go,"
Yeah,
and
that was really weird.
and well, and that's, they're kind of setting a precedent here. And it'll be interesting to see how they go with this moving forward, especially depending upon what Ronda does. Um, you know, but Stephanie hands her the title back and says, "Well, we still need to have this match because I already scheduled it. So if Becky wins, it's going to become a triple threat. If Charlotte wins, it'll remain a one-on-one." Um, Ronda then gets on the mic and basically shoots on the fans, saying, how, she's done so much and the fans have basically turned on her because of Becky, and basically had a heel turn, and then attacked Becky, and that's that's the show pretty much. Um, First off, what do you think of this segment? And then I'll talk about what I thought they should have done in with this whole scenario that would have worked even better.
Well, I think when Ronda went into the ring, if she would have gone in with that same intensity that she had towards the end, it would have been more believable because she kind of came in and literally said, "Well, I never really relinquished the title. I just put it at your feet to give you a week to think about it." Instead of she saying that, if she would have gone with the from the get-go, like, I make you guys so much money that I should get whatever I want, so give me back my damn title.
Mm-hmm.
And Steph would have given it to her like kind of like, maybe give her a little bit of pushback, but when she flares up, I'll kind of like, okay, here you go, it's yours, and just
Mm-hmm.
make it almost like a comic, but yet like selling her as, what, this girl can beat me at any given moment, so I don't want none of this.
Mm-hmm.
So I really thought that moment was kind of weird, and they could have done better with that.
Mm-hmm.
But once she started going off on the fans, I was like, damn, she showed that that diva-esque kind of, you guys know who the hell I am, what I've done, what I've accomplished, I put my body on the line, and you guys are booing me for these two, which I can obviously whip at, at any given
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
moment. I was like, yeah, this is pretty freaking believable. This has been mounting to this throughout these last few weeks. The only thing that she went wrong was when she blamed the fans for being booed in LA. She's like, you guys booed me in LA. Well, you're in a different city. The people in LA, which is your hometown, booed you.
Yeah.
So, but I understand what she meant. She was pretty much talking to the WWE universe.
Yeah.
But I then she went off, and like I was even telling my wife, because we were watching it together, I was like, the some of those punches you could tell were really hitting.
Mm-hmm.
This wasn't just the way Becky used the crotch to whip them, and just the way Charlotte used the kendo stick to whip her. She was getting her punches in,
Mm-hmm.
and the first armbar that she did on her, you could
You could
tell that
see,
was
yeah.
a real armbar. And like I told my wife, you can tell when the when you start seeing that little peak as the elbow is bending the wrong way. I was like, she literally had a in an armbar, and I was like, is she gonna break her arm for real,
Yeah.
or what's gonna happen? So I enjoyed that whole segment.
Oh yeah.
When she transitioned to the fake armbar versus the real one, it was so noticeable that I think that she should have probably kept on going, but you could tell that there was a lot of dialogue between them two while they were maneuvering around in the ring, and you could tell that Becky was literally pushing her, and at one point I could have sworn tried to slap her for real. Maybe she didn't like the way things were going, but it was very believable. I like the fact that Charlotte did not get involved. It keeps her getting her that
Mm-hmm.
feel from the fans.
Well,
And
it makes sense for her character
oh
because
yeah,
she's being the cowardly heel and she wants Becky not at 100%, so she presumably would have an easier time in beating her at
yeah, but
Fastlane.
Yeah, but definitely after this segment, I think you mentioned something earlier about the main event in WrestleMania. This has to be the main event. They
Well,
have
no,
to
of
keep
course.
in this way.
Yeah.
They have to keep going. I hope that as explosive as it was today, something happens on Fastlane, something happens the next Raw, and something keeps happening until that one match in WrestleMania, because they have something special here. Regardless of what happens afterwards, they have something special going on for this WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm. So, well, first off, it's gonna definitely be interesting to see how how the fans react to this match at Mania, because obviously the vast majority of fans are going to be behind Becky. But I'm curious to see if there's still going to be a decent minority of fans that are going to be behind Rousey still.
I, I, like today, it felt almost like these past few weeks, the crowd has kind of been turning on her. They
Yeah.
kind of been booing, and they've been calling out for Becky. And
Well, that's
I,
mostly, I think, just because of Becky's popularity at this
hmm
point.
but I think she's gonna be almost like a Reigns kind of effect. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially if Ronda were to leave WrestleMania still with the title, she would
Mm.
definitely that
Oh,
next
yeah.
Monday get the Reigns treatment.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that will be ridiculous
Yeah.
how
Oh,
much
yeah.
heat she's gonna get. So
Yeah.
who knows what's gonna happen? That
Yeah.
one's still not clear. We know
Yeah.
that even though everybody thinks it's gonna be Becky that's gonna come out with the title, if Charlotte or Rousey come out, they're definitely gonna get that Reigns heat,
Well,
and
see,
that will keep pushing forward.
that's the thing, and I mentioned it before. I mentioned it on some threads last week after the whole Kofi thing, which I'm sure Harry and I will talk about much more tomorrow when we do SmackDown. Um, but I the this WrestleMania has the opportunity to be one of the biggest fan service WrestleManias of all time, even bigger than 30, if they do it right. But if they do it wrong, it could be one of the biggest disasters. Granted, I kind of said this not quite to the level that I'm thinking this year. I did say this about last year, about both the SmackDown Women's Championship and the WWE Championship. But obviously both of those went the wrong way, and I hate to say it, at least for me, it kind of put a damper on the rest of the show.
Mm.
Granted, one of the two big matches that I'm thinking could be big fan service, but is a big, either make or break match. One of them could very well be at least relatively early on in the show, and that is the WWE Championship match, assuming that it's going to be Bryan versus Kofi. The other one is this triple threat. If Ronda wins, yeah, some fans may be okay with it, but a lot of fans are not. If Charlotte wins, everyone's going to be pissed. And if Becky wins, most everyone's going to be happy. So, if they do it right, if they have both Kofi and Becky win, this could be one of the most talked about and most memorable WrestleManias of all time.
I think so. I think with AEW and all this hype and everything that's going on, I think this would be a great moment for WWE to prove to all those naysayers that they do listen to the fans
Mm-hmm.
and that they are willing to give folks that maybe you never thought of them as champions. And that definitely, I'm not talking about Becky. I'm talking more about Kofi, because Kofi as Intercontinental, as U.S. champion, as a tag team champion, everybody was okay. But never have we thought of him. At least I haven't, as the world titleist. But
But
this,
the other thing it shows too is just how quickly, if WWE want to do something, if they want to make a big star out of someone, they can do it very quickly. And that's the one thing that a lot of people have been complaining about, is that it seems like, they give up on guys way too easily.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, and I was gonna say
yeah.
if they venture to experiment with Jinder Mahal, come on, 11
Yeah.
years that
Yeah.
Kofi's been here
Yeah.
and giving it his all, it's not even an experiment. Like right
No.
now, it's almost like Daniel Bryan. The people are calling for it to happen,
Exactly. This
and the
very
matches were
much
good too.
reminds me of Daniel Bryan. And they're even trying to play off of that with the whole KO thing, of trying to put obstacles in front of Kofi. But unlike now, granted, they could give us a swerve and piss everyone off by not
They've
doing
done it
this.
before.
What?
They've done it before.
I know. I'm sorry. It's funny, I'm so pessimistic about the WWE, but after these last couple of weeks, I've honestly been very optimistic. And it's funny, my fiance was so upset about what happened with Kofi last week. And I was like, wait for it. They're gonna do a situation where he has to fight his way into the Mania match, and then he's gonna win at Mania to give him a big moment. And I'm really, really hoping I'm right.
I hope so too.
Because, like you said, they've teased us with this in the past and then have switched course. But we'll see. One thing before we give ratings and whatnot, let me just talk about what I would have done with this whole Becky, Charlotte, and Ronda thing. I was thinking they were going to go one of two ways. The one would have been more fan service and would have, made a lot of people happy. But it would have gone against all of the rumors that we've seen and everything. But like we talked about with them starting to listen to the fans more and everything, maybe they would have done it. Just push up the triple threat, up to Fastlane. Have them do the triple threat here. Have either way you want to go. Either have Ronda pin Charlotte or Becky pin Charlotte, one way or the other, to knock Charlotte out of the picture. But then the other one, whoever wasn't pinned, say, you never pinned me. So I want that one-on-one match now.
Okay.
So, that would have been an interesting way to have gotten to a Becky Charlotte one-on-one match. The other thing that I was thinking they were gonna do, which, I mean, the way they're doing it is okay, but this kind of would have been a more exciting way to have gotten there, I think, at least in my opinion, would have been still have the one-on-one match between Charlotte and Becky for the title at Fastlane, but then have it go to a no contest because Ronda Rousey comes back at Fastlane and attacks both of them, and neither one of them win, and then that creates a triple threat.
Both would have worked out great. I actually think that your first scenario would have been best because it almost feels like, do they not trust that a one-on-one match is gonna be good? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously with Charlotte and Becky, you have the more wrestling experience. Not so much with Ronda. Now I'm gonna be honest here. I did not think Ronda was gonna be as good as she's been.
Oh, neither did I.
Whether it's wrestling, her mic skills can be better, but today it wasn't so much about what she was saying, it was how she said it.
Mm-hmm.
So I am really impressed how she's gotten so much better, how she has improved. But I really wonder if Charlotte being thrown into all of this is because they don't trust that a one-on-one match would work. Now it could, because they have more than enough time to keep preparing for it. So I actually like your first scenario where we go towards Becky and Charlotte. Becky and Ronda one-on-one versus the triple threat match. I really like that. That would have been even better.
Oh, it definitely would have been. Unfortunately, I think the reasoning behind why they're doing the triple threat is because the original plan prior to SummerSlam was to do do Ronda versus Charlotte one-on-one at Mania, and then Becky, between her popularity soaring and her the injury that she sustained prior to Survivor Series, that put the kibosh on that, and it basically forced them to change their plans and create the triple threat. But they didn't want to get rid of Charlotte because Charlotte, I mean, it's part storyline, but it's also part truth that Charlotte has been the golden girl of the women's division for the last few years.
Mm-hmm. She is amazing.
Mm-hmm. So that just about does it for Raw tonight. On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give this episode?
I would give them 8.5.
Okay.
I think overall it was a strong episode. The storylines that had to be pushed got pushed. Like we discussed, there were a few hit or misses there, but to me, for the most part, they did the best that they could, pushing not so much towards Fastlane, but almost like thinking long term towards WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely, I think they gave it a stronger push to. It helps Fastlane, don't get me wrong, but it's more to what's next.
Well, that always seems to be the case for these pre-Mania pay-per-views, whether it's Fastlane over the last couple of years or Roadblock or what have you.
But yeah, I think 8.5 would.
Yeah.
I think wouldn't be a bad score.
No, absolutely not. I'll give it an 8. Just because some of the segments were kind of weird. Like the whole thing, I understand why they did it to an extent, but they could have cut all the, like, some of the SNL stuff. Like some of that just felt like it fell flat. Yes, I'm nitpicking a little bit because they've done it every week for the past like 4 weeks now, but the whole Lacey Evans thing is just ridiculous. But besides that, for a vast majority of this episode, it was spot on. And like you said, they've done a great job of both prepping us for Fastlane and also prepping us for WrestleMania as well. One word review.
Oh wow, I would say hopeful.
Mm-hmm.
I would say hopeful. This show gives this episode today gives me hope of what could be uh the best quarter, the best 2 quarters of Raw, and if they keep doing the right thing, obviously every show's not gonna be great. You're looking at a Raw every week, a 3-hour show. Well, obviously mine's the commercials, probably like 2.5 show, but
yeah,
but they have the talent and they have ideas that they can keep building if they don't focus just on one person only, that being Roman Reigns, and they allow others to shine while continuing to build him in a much slower pace. So that I don't know if hopeful is a right review, but I think for me it's what I felt during the show.
I would agree with that one. I'll say I'll hyphenate mine. I'll say forward thinking. Like you were talking about, a lot of this was, yes, they were getting things finalized for Fastlane, but a lot of it is also preparing us for Mania. And, they're doing a really good job of it. And, I mean, like I said, I've said this before about Mania. It seems like I always get my hopes up for Mania and they always fall flat. But this Mania on paper right now looks like it could be really, really good and really, really enjoyable. We'll have to wait to see if they actually capitalize on that potential. But, right now it's looking up. WWE is looking up for the first time in a while. And it's the first time, now this was more so last week. They didn't do as much this week. Although they did do 1 or 2 in this one. But they've been doing a lot more screwy finishes, which I know a lot of fans hate it for obvious reasons. But that is one way that you can keep both the quote-unquote winner and quote-unquote loser looking strong at the same time. And it works. That's how a lot of guys were able to stay on that upper echelon in the Attitude Era, was because no one really, not many really got those big decisive victories where the loser was just completely buried.
Yeah, definitely. And maybe one match too late, but it was kind of good to see Revival not actually get another loss, but more of a DQ scenario. But not sure how much it helps them at this point. But it would have been very demoralizing to see them lose as tag team champions once again, and then lose the titles this soon. So like you were alluding to, this title reign is more like a hey, don't go. So definitely you gotta prolong it a little bit more than just taking the titles away so soon.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about the Revival is, as long as they have a decent title reign and they're made to look strong, I think they can be salvaged. They weren't buried quite enough, albeit they did some very shady things to bury them horribly, like the damn Lucha House Rules stuff. But they weren't buried quite to the level where they couldn't recover. And I think as long as you keep them looking strong and keep the titles on them for a little while, they should be okay. One thing I forgot to mention before we sign off, that would be great, and I haven't looked at the bracket to see because I know like most of it has been taped already. But it would be kind of cool to see Ricochet and Aleister Black become champs.
Yeah, I think that would be amazing, especially with this new. You're on the main roster, but you haven't really left NXT yet.
Yeah,
So,
like have them win the NXT tag titles at Takeover New York, and then have them win the Raw tag titles the next night at Mania. That would be great. Do I think it'll happen? Probably not, but we'll see.
again, like you were saying, this is one WrestleMania that definitely can do wonders for the WWE with new competition, or it could hurt them and hurt them pretty bad.
Oh,
Do
yeah.
I think that they as a company are just gonna disappear?
Oh, no, absolutely
but
not.
definitely fan wise, I think it will turn off a lot of folks, especially with the hype that AEW has and NJPW trying to cement themselves here in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
You have Mexican companies like AAA.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, they're gonna have a relationship with AEW where you're gonna see feuds between those two companies. So there is stiff competition coming, and this WrestleMania can definitely put WWE as the number one company. Like, hey, no matter what you guys do, we're still the number one company. We're still that company that is the measuring stick for everybody else.
Yeah, this is definitely not quite on a full level, not like it was back in the day, but this is definitely one of those turning point, make or break type manias where they can really either solidify themselves as still the top dog or, get hurt a little bit. So it's definitely going to be a fun ride, so be sure to stay tuned to us and hear all our banter about what happened on Raw. Good to have the show back. So yeah, and then tomorrow I'm pretty sure Harry and I will bring back SmackDown. So we will catch you next time. For Cedric Cologne, I am Brandon Biskobing signing off, and we will talk to you next week. See ya.